fled France, and settled in the Cape in 1710. In 1913, my great-grandfather trekked from De Aar in the Northern Cape to a little place called West Nicholson in southern Rhodesia. And that's where my life started. From humble beginnings as a fourth-generation Zimbabwean in a cattle ranching background. I'm going to start off today by sharing a little bit of my life before prison, the hardships I endured during my 10 years in prison, mixed in with a few life lessons, the incident, and then the main life lessons I learned during my 10 years in prison. And I'll be about 55 minutes. I want you to know two things before I get started. The first is that I'm innocent, and I want to reiterate that. I was ripped from my life and loved ones for years and spent a decade in prison. The second thing I want you to know is that I'm not free because I'm no longer incarcerated. My freedom means a lot more than that. It is a deeper freedom. And it is my road to this freedom that I want to share with you today. So let me highlight the contrast of my life before I got sent to prison. I was living the good life. I worked hard, played hard, and was an avid sportsman, playing several rugby tests for Zimbabwe too. I lived what you might call a very successful life with numerous thriving businesses. I was so busy being successful, though, that after 14 years, my marriage fell apart. And I no longer lived under the same roof as my beloved children. I missed them terribly. But through making the right business decisions, by the year 2000, life couldn't have been better for this farm boy who grew up dirt poor. I was extremely happy, making plenty of money in my safari business. I was flying my own aircraft, at a fishing resort on the shores of beautiful Lake Kariba in Zimbabwe. Flashy cars, houseboats, speedboats, you name it. And to top it off, I was engaged to a beautiful woman. Then in an instant, my world was turned upside down. It all started one weekend in December 2000 when I went on a fishing trip with friends to my fishing resort on Lake Kariba. Late one afternoon, one of my mates and I decided to go tiger fishing on the lake, leaving the other guys bream fishing in the river. And on our way back, we spotted two fish poachers in a steel boat, who immediately upon seeing us, started paddling hastily for the shore in an effort to get away from us. Knowing they were notorious poachers, I drove my boat towards them to scare them off, and the wake of my boat tilted their boat, causing them to jump out into the water, which was about 1.5 meters deep, and they were about 3 meters from the shore. They soon scrambled to dry land, and my friend and I then watched as they ran away into the bush and thought nothing more of it. The following day, the police arrived with one of the poachers and accused us of drowning the other one. To cut a long story short, I was framed by the poacher, the police, and the courts in an ugly, politically influenced conspiracy and sentenced to 15 years in Zimbabwe's prisons, of which 5 were removed as remission. Unbelievably, my co-accused only got a $10 fine and was set free because he was not driving the boat. And that's exactly as it was stated in the judgment. On the 3rd of April 2003, during the height of the land invasion chaos in Zimbabwe, against police evidence, without a body and on presumptions, I was convicted of drowning that poacher. The shock was inexpressible. I was innocent. I was a successful, self-made businessman with a high standing in the community. You can only imagine what was going through my mind as they read out that verdict. But what I didn't know then was from that moment on, my life would never be the same again. For the first 8 years, only one set of clothing was allowed at any one time. A standard white short-sleeve shirt and a pair of drawstring white shorts. Underwear was forbidden. After 6 months, you got a change of clothing. Sometimes. Other times after 9 months, leaving us walking around in tatters. I shared a cell 13 meters long or 3 meters wide with 78 other inmates. Each person had 33 centimeters marked out on the walls in chalk. That was your space. The toilet was a stainless steel bowl sunk into an open 1 meter square cement block in one corner, as you can see in my sketch up there. We were packed like sardines on our sides with legs all crossing over in the middle. And you all faced the same direction. When you turned over, it was all together. Guys who had to use the toilet at night couldn't help but trample you on the way to the toilet. As cushioning against the cold concrete floor, you'd fold 2 of your paper-thin, worn-out, lice-ridden blankets several times to fit your space, then covered yourself with a third one. And your clothes wrapped around a toothbrush and toothpaste, well, that gets stolen, and that was your pillow. From sleeping on those freezing hard floors, my hips had bruised black rings for years, and shoulders ached continuously. Those floors are cold and hard. And not even the breath you take wash our clothes in the cell toilets at night wearing a blanket. Then hang them on the walls with smuggled book staples to rub by the next morning. 3 or 4 of us would get together and take turns to wash our clothes because one garment had to be used to block the toilet to allow the toilet bowl to fill up when attempting to flush. No toilets flushed in any prison. The water only ever dribbled in slowly. Then we'd wash the clothes on the cement blocks surrounding the toilet bowl, dipping them in and out as we washed, as you can see in my sketch there. And then at about 5 a.m., we'd take the slightly damp clothes, place them on the cleanly swept concrete floor, and rub the creases out with a prison-made sponge. Then fold them neatly, place them in a pile, put a hand towel over the pile, and stamp on it hard with bare feet, leaving them perfectly ironed. Another hour hanging on the walls, they'd be ready to wear. Imagine wearing the clothes you're wearing now for 6 months without a change. Then to retain your dignity, having to wash them in a well-used toilet. Even if it was your sparkling, clean toilet at home, then having to wear them the very next day. I often thought how far removed that situation was from my life before prison. My beautiful, clean home and wash and iron clothing every day. The humiliation was beyond comprehension. That is Chikurubi Maximum Security Prison in Harare, and the red circle indicates my hall for 4.5 years in the prime of my life. I was transferred to Chikurubi after exactly 1 year in Kami Maximum Security Prison outside Bulawayo. In 2005, during the Zimbabwe dollar crash, Harare city ran out of water. For 3 years, while in Chikurubi Maximum Security Prison, each prisoner was allocated only 1 plastic cup of water a day. 1 cup of dirty orange city runoff water from the nearby dam, Chikurubi Dam. That water was carried by farm prisoners. That was to drink, clean your teeth, wash your face, bath, everything for 3 years. Everybody 1 cup a day. That's us sitting in formation, waiting for 1 cup a day. And that's when guys really started dying. For 17 hours during nighttime lockup, from 3 in the afternoon until 8 in the morning, we were only allowed to use cell toilets if it was an emergency for hygiene purposes, because there was no water. So after 8 a.m. unlock each day, the 400 of us in our hall, so there were, Chikurubi is a hexagon shape, as you saw there, and there are 5 halls with 400 guys, so 2,000 guys. And then the 6th hall, half was remand and half was admin, so 2,200 guys. And at 8 a.m., when they unlocked the cells, there are 400 guys and there are 8 toilets, 4 on the first floor, 4 on the second floor. And almost instantaneously, busting queues it for me. We'd all been holding it the whole evening, 17 hours. And that's exactly as the toilets were. So there were just 1 long cement block with toilet bowls, 4 toilet bowls separated by walls with no doors. And you'd wait your turn in line, then climb up on the cement block to do your business, and there'd be 80 pairs of eyes glued on you waiting to finish. Talk about stage fright. Dignity was non-existent. When you're that low and you have nothing left to lose, you can still find even the smallest things that become meaningful. Let me give an example. Thinking they were safe, the pigeons in Chikurubi Max would lay their eggs high up in the gutters of the halls. During the Zimdola crash, when there was no food and even the guards were starving, they would regularly catch innocent brooding pigeons off their nests. And one evening, one of the guards approached our cell with a struggling pigeon in his hands. And while he was chatting to the other inmates, I took 10 cigarettes from our stash of smokes, which is money in prison, never been a smoker, stood up, walked over to the wire mesh between us, and asked him what he was going to do with that pigeon. He proudly said, I'm going to eat it. And everyone burst out laughing. Knowing that the thought of killing the innocent bird upset me a lot, because I've mentioned it many times. But knowing that it was a heavy smoker and could be easily cursed with cigarettes, which we got from our visitors fortnightly, I asked him if I could buy the pigeon from him for 10 cigarettes. So he looked at the pigeon, he looked at me, and he said, show me the smokes. After showing the cigarettes, he immediately agreed. I then said to him, go to the window and let the pigeon go. In astonishment, he looked at the window and he looked at the pigeon and he looked at me and he said, well, how do I know you're going to give me the cigarettes after it flies away? I said, I will. I'll stand here. All these guys are my witness. And after you release the pigeon, I'll give you your 10 cigarettes. So he hesitantly walked over to the window and released the pigeon into the darkness. It was a magnificent moment as they all watched the pigeon fly away to freedom once more. Then he anxiously returned and I gave his 10 cigarettes. But it gave me a great sense of fulfillment, knowing that I was able in some small way, under those terrible conditions, to make a difference in this beautiful world. I have learned that the most important things in life cannot be bought. Health, loved ones, and friends. In that order. During my first 6 years in prison, I watched over 2,200 guys die, primarily from malnutrition. It was during the Zimbabwe dollar crash when there was no food outside of prison, never mind in there. After being moved to a medium security prison during the cholera outbreak of 2008 and 2009, in 8 months, out of 1,200 of us prisoners at Harare Central Prison, 432 guys died. More than 1/3 of us in 8 months. One weekend, 22 guys died. And that triggered something inside me about my health. And I want to challenge every one of you here today to do a rain check on your health. Because once your health is gone, everything else in your life will have no meaning whatsoever. Loved ones, in June 2006, the prison death rate was so high from malnutrition and disease that prison headquarters started allowing relatives to deliver food to their loved ones daily. And my darling sisters, Bev and Lynn, fed me for 3 months, selling furniture and scraping money from wherever, until Lynn sold her clay pot business and gave up her career just to feed me for 4 more years. That takes a very special person. And I can honestly say that without her, I wouldn't be standing up here today. She was married, had 2 kids, sold her business, gave up everything just to feed her butt for 4 years. And unfortunately, very few relatives could financially afford to feed their loved ones daily. And I helped as many guys as I could afford to. But the hunger continued for most. But friends, family, love and support sustained me as much as the warm home-cooked food they brought. And friends, Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. There is a special unwritten code that bonds friends like we all share in this part of the world. The warm, caring, and considerate society we make up from all walks of life can never be equaled anywhere. I shared treasured memories with thousands of good people in Africa. And it was those memories and their endless generosity, consideration, and knowing what a fantastic bunch of people we still have left here that kept me going all those years in hell. Knowing that one day I'd be traveling around reminding people, good to you here today, never to forget the value of your friends. Because only when you have them all taken away Do you realize how much they mean to you? Full was that night, my closest friend and I were playing cards in the tiled floor of the crowded exercise yard one day, and a guy sitting next to me rolled over dead. No one around us moved. We couldn't believe it. And there was nowhere else to go because the place was packed. So we just turned a little so we couldn't see him and carried on playing until prisoner hospital staff collected him. That's how terrible it was in there. There were people dying everywhere. And you could smell dead people continuously, day and night. However, that particular incident has always left me wondering why that guy died and I didn't. Why so many others lost their lives and I had the privilege of living. I'll never really know, but what I do know is that it taught me to be humble. When you could be the one dying tomorrow and you don't, you learn to be humble and grateful for every little thing about your life. And we have all in some way become desensitized to things in our community at one time or another. It is a surviving mechanism. But it also reduces compassion and humanity. It's a fine line to tread when pushed so deeply. But if you've lost the ability to empathize, then you've lost what it means to be human. What I've shared with you so far is probably about 3% of my story. I was there for 10 years. The rest you can find in my book, which is for sale outside afterwards, 320 Rand. The foreword in the book was done by Ian Mack, the former Springbok rugby coach, who grew up with my dad and watched my rugby all the way through, and I was very privileged to have Bear Grylls read the book and do a shout on the front for me. I want you to all go back 10 years in your life. So think about where you were middle of 2016. Now think about how much you've accomplished in the last 10 years. That's what a big chunk I'd taken away. But even in the depth of such horrendous experiences, I knew I had ultimate control of how I chose to feel and respond. Behind every severity lies an opportunity. And that experience gave me the opportunity to get to know hidden attributes about myself and time to consider some really important things in life. My life in chains taught me many lessons, and that's what I'd like to share with you now. How my faith and mental strength got me through there. After being moved to a medium security prison, whilst delivering food one day, my sister asked me if I would like an iPod. So I said to her, "What's an iPod?" She said, "It's a thing that plays music." So I said, "Well, how big is it?" And she indicated this small flat little thing. So I said, "Well, how many songs does it play?" She said, "About 1,000. I said, "No ways. Where do you put all the CDs?" That's how much technology had advanced in just 6 years I've been away. So if you think back 2003 till 2009, like taking a picture and sending it to someone on the phone, that was like from Mars. There's nothing like that. Anyway, the following day, the iPod arrived under the salad. And about a week later, one of those cheap Nokia cell phones was sneaked in too. And it was exciting, risky business that you couldn't dream of in a maximum security. This was medium security. And everything was going perfectly until an envious prisoner reported me. After an unexpected search, unbelievably through some quick maneuvering with the on-site guards, nothing was discovered. But I was sent to solitary confinement anyway for 2 years. That was extremely lonely. But after experiencing that precious little link to the outside world, I had to get my phone back. And I did, which made a huge difference. I had guards charging the batteries. They got batteries in those things, and different mates of mine paying the guards. And everything was going perfectly until after 18 months, one of the friendly guards approached my pile at 5 in the morning and whispered, "Russ, they're coming for your phone." And there's no way of getting a phone out of there. But someone had brought me a protein powder about a month before. And it had to go through the doctor and then security, a big story to get it in. And when I received that, I've obviously never seen anything like that. So I opened it, broke that silver seal. When I tasted it and put the seal back, the next time I closed it and opened it, that seal had stuck like it was brand new. So I kept it to hide my phone. So that morning, opened it, broke the seal, took half the powder out, wrapped my phone in plastic, put it in, put the powder, put the seal, put the lid on. The iPod was with full. And 6 o'clock, the guards arrived. And what they do is they make you strip naked. Then you got to jump with your legs open like you're hiding something. Then you all walk out stark naked into the courtyard, 1,200 guys. And they do the search. So after the search, I go back into my cell, and everything is upside down everywhere. But my protein powder, still in good shape. 5 minutes later, I'm summoned to the security office. I walk in there are 4 guards standing. One is seated behind a long desk and an empty chair. Now, I hadn't sat in a chair for 7.5 years. He said to me, take a seat. I sat down, felt good. He said, do you have a girlfriend called Karen? So I said, no. I said, I'd been before prison called Karen. He said, okay. When did you last talk to her? I said, long ago, before prison. He said, are you sure? I said, yeah. So he handed me a letter addressed to me from Karen. So now I was talking to you on the phone the other night. You sound so positive. After some intense questioning, this thought just came to me, and I said, no, Karen was having lunch in Bulawayo, and she met a lady there and started chatting, and soon realized that they both had boyfriends in the same prison. So the lady said, well, let me call my boyfriend, who's a guard in there. He can call Russ, and you guys can have a chat. So I used the guard's phone. But after I couldn't tell them what the girl's name was, they didn't buy it. An hour later, I'm escorted up to the officer in charge's office. When you go up there, it's big trouble. And they were waiting, like 15 big brass officers all standing in a half circle, officer in charge behind his big desk, and my empty chair in the middle. He said, take a seat. I sat down. He said, if you don't tell me what Dad's God's name is, your life in this prison is going to change. And I said, officer, I don't know his name. And then the question started. How tall was he? How old? What rank? Where did you make the call? How long ago did you make the call? And I answered as best I could, and they were getting furious because they couldn't pin me on anything. And then the head of the SOCA, very nice officer, he said, do you want to talk to the officer in charge on your own? So I said, yes, please. So they all leave. I closed the door. I said, officer, we've both been through hell. We've watched hundreds of guys die. I donated endless stuff to the prison service. I said, can't you just let the son go? He said, Russ, I don't care about you, but I want the God's name now. He was furious. So I said, well, I don't know his name. He said, okay. Calls the guards. He said, put him on death row in the dark cell. So they escorted me over to the condemned section. They used to hang guys in those days. And there were 56 cells. 52 had guys waiting to be hung. And the 4 cells to the left, they were exactly the same as my solitary confinement. So they were 3 meters by 1 meter by 3 meters with a vent, no window. And the dark cell had a staircase built over the vent. And the electric light didn't work. So it was pitch black because the door is solid wood with just a spiral that's got a little flap on it. And they made me strip naked, gave me 3 worn-out lice-ridden blankets, 5-liter container cut off at the top of the toilet, same as solitary, and a liter of water. They locked me in there for 23 hours and 45 minutes a day. I was allowed out 5 minutes in the morning to clean my teeth, 5 minutes at 10 o'clock to prepare for lockup, to have a shower, 5 minutes at 3 o'clock to prepare for lockup. It was cold, lonely, and dark, like being buried alive. I couldn't even see my hand. Desperate on day 6, I got on my knees and I prayed. And I'll never forget the feeling of like warm water being poured over me and a total sense of calmness. So I sat on the floor, leaning against the wall. Within 30 minutes, I faintly heard my Afrikaans mate shouting from the soccer ground, hey, Russ, everything's okay, my mate, don't worry, everything's okay. So I jumped up. I said, hey, fool, don't worry, Russ, everything's okay. I thought, okay. Laid on the concrete, looking up at the darkness. Within 10 minutes, I unlocked my door. And the sound of those locks goes right through you. Checked me in my clothes. Said, the officer in charge wants to see you. So I get dressed. Go out into the blinding sun, across the courtyard, up the stairs to his office. His exact words were, he said, "Hello, Russ." I said, "Hello, sir." He said, "Have you remembered the guy's name yet?" I said, "No, sir." He said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave it in God's hands. You can go back to yourself." And at the exact moment when I was praying, my sister was paying him $200 to get me out of there. That was a huge turning point in my spiritual walk, and I'm happy to say that Jesus is everything in my life today. I have learned not to let past thoughts hurt me. The past only exists in your head. It can only come to life if you let it. Jesus said in Matthew 6:27, "Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life?" I was forced to live in the moment in prison, and it's one of the biggest lessons I still practice today. That's a picture of me in Aurora Central Prison in 2010, 18 months after the cholera outbreak ended. I found it on the internet. A sad, lonely time in my life. But to be able to find positives in all the negatives going on around me brought hope, which is a huge part of getting through prison life. Hope is the anchor of your soul. Hope enabled me to see that there is light despite all the darkness. Let your hopes, not your troubles, shape your future. I'll say that again. Let your hopes, not your troubles, shape your future. And never look for hope outside of yourself. To find it, you need to look within. You said to me in year 1, you're going home in year 3. I would have said never. Going home, no. 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks I could live with. Anything beyond that was too painful. I counseled myself on how to think through the physical impact my thoughts had on me. Like if I thought about my fiancée with another oak, my mates on fishing trips, we used to go all the time. Trips to Vegas, we went marketing every year. It was too painful. So I blocked those out until that peace returned. And to be able to find happiness in even the smallest things that happen in prison kept me healthy. Those who couldn't died. Life in prison or in Las Vegas is still just life. It's what you make of it, no matter where you are. I had everything I could ever wish for, and in moments, it was all gone. Why you should forgive the humiliation of being labeled a murderer in terrible conditions were extremely hard to deal with. As was the pain of my bitterness, anger, hatred, frustration, and revenge for what they'd done and were doing to me. I hated them bitterly and would lie there for hours wishing every terrible thing on each of them in turn, the poacher, the police, the judge, the ministry, and all who were involved in my conviction. Then one day, I was struck by the realization that they'd all forgotten about me long ago. Here I was, consumed by the unfairness of it all, and they, blissfully unaware of the evil I wished on them every day. In the end, I was only hurting myself. I was carrying all that in my head and beating myself up for nothing. The single biggest lesson I learned in prison was true forgiveness. And for me, it was bigger than anything I could have achieved on my own. True forgiveness was inspired by God Almighty. And so was letting go. It was a huge weight off my shoulders. And I learned to live in the moment from then on. The past was too painful, and the future full of unkept promises. I just dealt with each day as it was. I learned to have faith. Because no amount of worrying was going to change what I was going through. If you have anger or resentment towards anyone in any way, it'll eventually destroy you. Because that is what those emotions do. They steal from you. They steal happiness and freedom. Many people ask me how I managed to forgive them for what they did to me. I remember the exact moment walking in that exercise yard, tired of all anger, hatred, and bitterness. It was draining me daily. And I remember after about a year in that exercise yard, I just looked up and I said, Lord, take care of them and let me get through this road that's been put in front of me. What goes around comes around, they'll get to what they deserve. And once I'd accepted that and handed it over, my life in prison changed. And the ironic thing for me, unlike some of the other books I've read, mine wasn't a gradual process. Mine was an instant mindset shift. It was like I had this secret I was keeping from the guys for years and years, so scared it was going to get out. Then one day I just told the guys, out. Forgiveness doesn't change the person that hurt you. Forgiveness changes you. You can look at it in two ways. You can forgive, forget, and move forward, or you can retain, remember, and regret. The choice is yours. And if you say, I'll forgive, but I'll never forget, then you still remember and will never move forward. And I don't mean forget the lessons learned from the incident. Just don't revisit the incident. Don't revisit the pain. You can't bounce back from anything unless you forgive those who you believe have done you wrong. And only when you forgive and let go of the past can you be fully free to move forward with your full potential. Why you should be grateful. We all want too much in our lives, concentrating on what we haven't got instead of being grateful for what we have. And for me, giving thanks to God every day goes a long way. For my health, beautiful wife, lovely family, a soft bed, running water, and so on. When there's no food, no water, and people are dying all around you, you become grateful for the fact that you're still breathing. And another day is a blessing. When you lie in a cell with 78 other people, and your breath is not even your own, gratitude doesn't have a different meaning altogether. Accepting that what I went through cannot be changed, and being grateful for what it taught me has unlocked my vision for my future. The healthiest of all human emotions is gratitude. Remember that and practice it. Having an attitude of gratitude is one of the most impactful habits for a fulfilling and healthy life. After Red Cross had taken over feeding and things got back to normal in there, in March 2009, we began a soccer league. And I was delighted to make the prison squad as a goalkeeper, to walk under strict escort to play against the opposite side on the field in their compound. And during our jovial march there, singing all the way with fellow players, I asked one of the guards if I might touch my first tree in 6.5 years. When granted permission, I joyously broke formation and did so. And I clearly remember the roughness of the bark, reminding me of my granddad's farms, and the distinct smell of that jacaranda tree, which I knew so well. You have no idea how beautiful and uplifting it felt just to touch a tree and feel green grass again. My first evening at Connemara Open Prison, which is a farm prison where I was transferred after 8 years, I spent sitting around an open fire on old logs and bleak cattle skulls, chatting with old Ndebele inmates, taking me back to what I loved so dearly as a child. Now I remember getting lost in their interesting stories and the beauty of the sunset, dancing flames, tranquil call of a nightjar, and the bright stars and the moon, which I hadn't seen for 8 lonely long years. I never saw a sunset or a sunrise either for my first 8 years. Now, I appreciate the everyday little things in life, like a soft bed, a hot bath, the feeling of a warm shower over your head, tasty meal, spontaneous cuddle from a loved one. Because those are the things you miss most when you have it all taken away. There are things we know that rejuvenate us. And for me, it has always been nature. I am and will forever be a farm boy from Zimbabwe at heart. Nature's in my blood. Touching a tree, smelling the earth, the feeling of soil in my hands. These things bring me restoration. And for you, it might be hang out with friends, dancing, reading a good book, swimming in the ocean. Whatever is good for you, do more of it. I want to take you back to the year 2000, the year the incident took place. Top left-hand picture, on the far left is a billionaire client of mine, Ray Anthony. From Pittsburgh, we're flying in his private jet from Fort Lauderdale to Tampa, Florida, where we collected General Norman Swalscroft, the man next to me in that photo. He was the officer commanding of the United States Armed Forces during the Gulf War, the most powerful man in the world at the time. We were flying to Reno, Nevada to attend the Safari Club International Convention together. It was a huge honor. Top right-hand picture on the left is Glenn Dubin, myself, and Louis Bacon, two billionaires from New York that I spent many wonderful safaris with. Bottom left, I'm in a V8 Ferrari, which was my car in Miami for a month. Bottom right, on a private yacht in Fort Lauderdale. My life back then was all about flashy cars, private yachts, and mixing with billionaires. Thought I was invincible, flying high thinking I was bulletproof. Unbeknown to me, my life was being controlled by ego, power, and money. Satan had sunk his claws deep into my soul, and I didn't even know it. Make sure you're not in that lost world too. Going further back in my life, I was a wild teenager, make no mistake. Drinking, fighting, poaching, anything that pushed the boundaries of the law was fun. We lived life to the full, never considering the consequences. But had I known during all those years what I know now, life would have been very different. You don't want to know what else I went through in prison. I had to fight for my life on many occasions. And it was by the grace of God that I came out alive. Thousands didn't. With all due respects, be very careful what path you choose to follow in this world today. Don't get mixed up with the wrong people and start pushing the boundaries of the law. Because you don't want to go where I've been. There's no mercy in prison. None. It's real and it's rough. Despite the hell I'd gone through, physically and mentally, the worst part was knowing that my beloved children were growing up without me. I told you in the beginning that not living under the same roof as them when my wife and I separated was the hardest thing. Imagine the heartbreak I felt when I went to prison. We have always been extremely close. It is a bond I will cherish and protect to my dying day. My proud son Dusty, only 18 at the time, was always full of ambition. And we'd joyously discuss and dream of making millions and plan endless projects and adventures. He was following in my footsteps and loving every minute of it, ready to take on the world with his dad, and then I was ripped away. My precious 16-year-old daughter Sandy and I had, and still have, an extraordinarily beautiful bond. Since a baby, she's always been my shadow. And especially as she is to me, I'm to her. But at 16, I was her anchor. I was everything in her eyes. She confided in me without boundaries and clung to everything I said and did. I loved them beyond expression. They loved me. And the times they needed me most, I wasn't there. They went through first loves, crushes, dances, 21st birthdays, and entered the wide world, and I wasn't there to see it. It is an annoying feeling knowing that I'm their father, I should have been there, but I couldn't be. And I don't want anyone here ever to have to feel that way. Make enough time for your loved ones. Thinking back on the events of my life, it was so difficult to make sense of so much of it, but I see it so clearly now. I was a big fish, little Bulawayo, going nowhere, like a hamster on a wheel going round and round. And it was all about me, my empire, money, more and more. And now, I'm a little fish in a whole wide world, making a huge difference, and it's not about me. It's about helping others, making a difference in other people's lives. I never had a purpose before. And the satisfaction I get from helping others far outweighs the millions I was making before. I can now see how the Lord supernaturally drew me out of the outdoor safari life that I love so dearly to find my purpose. He had taken me from humble beginnings to great success, mixing with the world's elite, flying in private jets across the world, etc. Then been put through that nightmare and losing everything I'd worked my whole life for. But He has prepared me for this calling. And believe it or not, I thank God for my 10 years in prison. I do. Because I'm a better person now than I would have been had I not gone to prison. I'm stronger, I know God better, I understand people more, and I believe it's made me able to reach out to you to tell you that you can recover from whatever life throws at you. Do you think that anyone could ever fully recover from a terrible setback in life? Well, you're looking at somebody that did. You're looking at living proof that you can recover from whatever life throws at you. No matter what hardships you're going through in life right now, just remember, you're being prepared for where you're going. God has a plan for each and every one of us. I wish I could express I've got 5 minutes left. I wish I could express the happy, bubbly, exciting, beautiful feeling I felt as I walked out those prison gates to freedom after 10 years of hell. People don't appreciate freedom. And I realized that even when we are not in prison, there are ways in which we imprison ourselves. So our business partnerships, badly selected careers, being obsessed with money and ambition in the corporate world, even unhappy marriages. And it's only when you have your freedom completely taken away do you realize in many ways that you are actually in prison too. And when I look back on it all, it makes me wish I could somehow get through to people how precious and priceless freedom is. If you look at your life as it is right now, how free are you within your circumstances? Freedom is not just not being in prison. Freedom is the ability to make a choice and act in it. Freedom is letting go of what you can't control. Freedom is forgiveness. Freedom is being free from negativity. Freedom brings health. If you can be free in all areas of your life, then you'll reach your full potential. When you go through what I endured, they crush you in every way. Physically and mentally. Your confidence, your spirit, your soul, everything. And to pick yourself up again, no matter how confident you were when you went in, is tough. I had huge wounds that I thought would never heal for years. And a massive void in my life that I thought would never be filled. But the moment I met Sandra 10 years ago, I knew there was something very special about her. Within 3 years of meeting her, I was completely healed and content once again. I could never have imagined the peace and happiness that I now experience every day. I want to thank you, my love, and thank you, Jesus. The company you keep influences your thinking influences your actions influence your character determines your destiny. In conclusion, I was fortunate. I'd made it big, was very successful, and possibly during that time, I became a bit arrogant. But that experience has made me realize that I'm just a normal human being. That you can't value your life based on your title, your success, or your material possessions. If you had everything taken away from you right now, who'd be left? What would people see looking at you as a person? We need to look at our core values more deeply, see how we can change lives and maybe make a difference in this world. There were times in there when I just felt this was the end. I didn't have the mental strength left to overcome more of those never-ending challenges. But from the bowels of despair comes this realization that just as my mind had helped drag me through those depths that far, so could it pull me out of them. Each and every one of us, when you dig deep enough, can find this inner strength to get through life's toughest times and deepest holes, out of our cages, out of the dark. If you're one of you here today, it's faced with challenges, day in and day out. Those that you look for and those that sneak up on you from behind. But who you are and the depth of your determination is what's going to elevate you to become someone that people will look up to and forever remember. Thank you very much.